Good morning, it's Vicky from Free Fun Limits, and the wind has just picked up just as I started the video. I'm hoping that the wind noise won't be too annoying. I haven't actually ever said that I never actually edit these videos, which is probably quite obvious if you've watched any of them. It's just the way that I am. I figure that whatever gets said in the video is what needs to be said, needs to be shared, and I try not to overthink the putting it out in the world, and so I just stick it out before I can change my mind. So yes, apologies for the wind noise, which probably can be eradicated if you were clever enough and knew how. Anyway, today I wanted to just look at a question that I get asked a lot, and also something that I experienced a lot until, I guess, relatively recently, and that is, why do I always focus on the worst case scenario, or on a sense of there being something wrong, or there's going to be something wrong. So that was basically how I operated for 40 plus years of my life. I just constantly was thinking that there was something wrong, that something needed to be different, that something needed to be fixed, or I was constantly kind of thinking about, but focused on the worst case, like, what if this happens, what if that happens, how would I deal with that? And I just kind of lived in that place. And if any of you know my story, then you'll know that although outwardly everything seemed to be perfectly fine, my life was amazing, because I was so focused on what was wrong internally, like within the focus of my thought. It was on things that were wrong, or needed to be different, or whatever. My experience was not a very pleasant one. It was I spent a lot of time in worry and anxiety, and just feeling really constricted, and it was tricky. And I guess probably quite a lot of you will resonate with that if you're listening to this video. So I totally know, I know where you're coming from, and I just wanted to kind of address it in terms of how I see it. So the whole focus on what's wrong, or the sort of, I guess, imagining worst case scenarios is, as far as I see it, a habit of thought. It's like any other habit that we have, something that we've picked up. It's a way of operating that we've kind of acquired. And we kind of learn that from the people around us and how they operate, how society kind of speaks about things. It's just, I think in the Western world it's pretty common for people to look at the worst case situation and to think that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed. But like any habit, it can be, it doesn't have to be forever. Once you see that, so once I saw that I had this tendency to focus on thoughts that were negative, like this is going wrong, that's going wrong, what's wrong with me, what am I going to do if this happens? Like, my tendency was to really fixate on those thoughts. But when I became aware of that through these kinds of conversations, it was simply that seeing that that's all that was happening. So while I was focused on there's something wrong, then having focus on that thought meant that was felt in the system, in my body. And then I had the experience of there being something wrong. So if you take like some, let's just say a feeling in your body, let's say, I don't know, you've got a headache, I'm just taking dog off the lead. So you can think, right, there's something wrong. I've got this headache. Why am I getting this headache? I need to do something about it. And whilst you're sort of focused on there being something wrong, the experience of the headache kind of gets worse, exacerbates the thing. So the more attention you put on the thing that is believed to be wrong, the more you feel that thing. And so it feeds the loop. So you're then in a situation where there might be a sensation in the body, there's a thought about what that is, so there's an interpretation, because a headache really, when you look at it, is just, there's just this sensation in the head without all the words and interpretation of that. If you take away words and concepts, there's just whatever is the sensation in the head, which doesn't mean anything, doesn't mean there's anything wrong necessarily. You might, doesn't mean that you also don't go to the doctors and get it checked. But if you just are with the sensation, then, and you're out of the story about it, then you're just in the pure experience. And so, yeah, I think what I'm pointing to and what I'm inviting you to consider is that the more you put attention on thoughts of things being wrong, or on the what if thoughts, you will feel them, and so that then feeds the story that there's something wrong. So the invitation here is just to notice that that habit. It is just simply a habit, something that you've learnt, that you've picked up. Who knows why, who knows where from, it doesn't even matter, but just to see that when you were born you didn't have it. You didn't have that when you were born. So it's not your kind of default, if you like, it's just something you've picked up like any other habit. They're all things that we've just picked up and done enough times that they just easily happen. And so any time that you notice that there's attention being paid to those kinds of thoughts, the invitation is just to come back to what do you actually know, without all the words, without the concepts, without all the thoughts, what's actually present. So in the example of the headache, when you strip away all of the words to describe it, the meaning behind it, or it means I'm not going to be able to do this, or because I've got a headache I can't think properly, or I'm not going to be able to work, or whatever it is, without all of that, there's just the raw sensation. And the more that we do that, the more that we come back to, I say reality, but as close to reality as we can get, the sort of bare facts without the words and the meaning and the interpretation, the easier life becomes. And I say that from experience, and obviously, like anything I share, I don't want you to just take that as a fact and go away and, kind of beat yourself up or whatever you might do with it, but simply just to play with it, to experiment, see whether it's true. What happens for you if you just notice those habits of thought and don't engage with them. I'm not saying change them, I'm not saying try to ignore them, I'm not saying try to get rid of them, none of that, but simply just notice that they are there and come back to what's here without thought, what's actually present, what's not made up in thought, what's actually going on. And just notice for yourself what that does. And if you do it over and over again, that habit of thought, of going to worst case scenarios, it just doesn't pop up as much. So in my experience now, I don't spend as much time getting caught up in the ideas that there's something wrong with me, something wrong with the outside world, something that's going to go wrong. I just don't spend very much time there if it comes up, which of course it does. I have thoughts like that will pop up, but they just don't grab my attention anymore like they used to, because that sort of habit of just jumping straight on the thought and believing it isn't there anymore. So go off and experiment, play, let me know how you get on, and I will be back another day with another question. If you've got any questions, as always, pop them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you'd like to get in touch about coaching or exploring this in more detail for you, then you'll find all my contact details on the YouTube page, or you can leave a comment below and I'll get in touch with you. Till next time, lots of love, bye!